big. But they're presenting a virtual town hall series this whole week to provide, insight so we can discuss next steps for the culinary community to recover. Because as we can see where money is going, as we can see where resources are lacking, and they're lacking in our communities. So today, one of those things we're going to be talking about is alternative financing methods for the culinary community. A lot of Black-owned businesses were left out of the recent SBA, PPP funding. And our panelists will discuss other options for financing for small businesses, whether it's in the banking industry, finance industry, insurance. So what we're going to do is I'm going to let all of them, give them about 3 minutes, just to introduce themselves. Sorry, guys, I don't know what happened. But just give all of them about 3 minutes just to introduce themselves so people can know a little bit about who they are, what they do, and I'm going to give it up. I guess I'm looking at Renee. So Renee, if you want to go ahead and go first. Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay. It's all right. I'm happy to be here and just really excited to find out how we can help as a credit union proponent institution, if you will. I am Renee Sadie-White, the president and CEO of AACUC, the African American Credit Union Coalition. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we have been formed to make sure that the credit union industry, this is what I like to say, we're the NAACP of the credit union movement. And so we make sure that all the opportunities are equitable and that there's diversity. And so that's one of the things that we try to make sure that happens in the credit union industry, in the credit union space. I've been in finance for over 30 years. I started at a bank in Los Angeles. I'm in Atlanta now, and working with credit unions around the country. One of the things that is very, very important to AACUC and our membership is making sure that the members of our credit union are well taken care of. So I'm very excited to be here this evening and look forward to answering any questions you may have.
All right, thank you so much. I love it. Man of me in Texas already. All right, Miss Bridget, if you want to go next, and then Carl, you can go right after her.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for being on the call. I think this is a very, very important call to have. My name is Bridget Ross, and I am Senior Business Development Officer with Lyft Fund, which is a community development financial institution. Basically, we are an SBA intermediary lender. I too, like Renee, have been in the finance industry for over approaching about 30 years, starting out with my own financial services, financial services firm, actually in Atlanta, moved to Houston. And here in Houston, I have been the director of the Small Business Development Center at Prairie View A&M University. PV, those in Texas know what that means. Sorry about that, I digress. And as well as with a Lyft Fund, actually returning to Lyft Fund after 7 years at Prairie View, returning to Lyft Fund as their Senior Development Officer. My main focus is acquisition to capital, assessing the capital, but understanding it. And I'm very passionate about it. And, to come to COVID-19 and hopefully after this pandemic, we actually get what we've been teaching for years. We do have representation in 13 states. In Atlanta, we have Stephanie Bolden representing the Atlanta area. And I look forward to sharing with you today. And I pray that you walk away with some nuggets that's very key for you to make sure you have access to the capital that has been afforded to us.
All right, Mr. Carl, go ahead. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then after that, we're going to invite Michelle Taylor to introduce herself.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you very much. My name is Carl Calendar. I'm right here in the state of Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia to be exact, and I'm happy to be on this panel for this evening to talk to the industry that's probably been hit the hardest, especially in our Black communities. I am an insurance agent, life insurance, health insurance agent. I've been doing this for the last 4 years, and I'm also assistant senior director with Legal Shield and Identity Shield. Pretty much tonight, what I'm going to be talking about and try to tie this in on the financial side, I'm going to let the ladies handle the financial side, but I want to definitely put a spin on this as far as with Legal Shield that a lot of people don't understand is for us to make sure we stay empowered and protected and having affordable legal services where we have access to ask questions before we get ourselves in financial trouble. One of the main things that I understand when I'm sitting down with a potential client doing a policy is I ask them, when's the last time you updated your will? And they get that deer in headlight look like, I don't have one. So when speaking on that, and as far as with the restaurant industry and what we're going to be talking about this evening, we got to make sure we set ourselves up for the long haul. This right here showed us that we can't do anything short term. If we plan on doing generational wealth and leaving a legacy and passing on whatever we have to the next, we got to think about the long haul. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate that. Miss Michelle, take it away.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Michelle Taylor. As I mentioned before, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I've been in Atlanta 24 years, moved in here in 96. I have a wealth of financial experience, having worked on Wall Street with a private bank and everything. I'm an HBCU grad of Hampton University. So eat, sleep, drink, homecoming, very active in my sorority. I now work for a company called Heartland Payment Systems. And what I want to express to everyone tonight, we knew what was out there when they came out with the first stimulus or recovery package, that where the money was ultimately going to go. But Heartland, by me explaining tonight about our different options, our different business solutions, there is still hope out there for the small business.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it, Michelle. So everybody who's got a chance to introduce themselves, so we're going to get right into the meat so we can provide more value to everybody. So I'm going to ask a few different questions. Feel free to answer, chime in one by one. And so the first question is, many Black-owned businesses were not able to get the recent funding from SBA. We know it went to a lot of the larger corporations like Roof Chris, Shake Shack, Subway, Potbelly. With that being said, what is next for these businesses who did not get this SBA loan from the government?
I'd like to start with the answer on that. As a matter of fact, I'm happy for this call because it allows me to take a break from processing PPP applications. But the key thing is this, I do believe this, Jeremy, is that if we don't correct why we didn't get the funding the first time, we will not get it the next time. Exactly. And the key thing is your documentation, having your documentation together. What I'm finding, be it the PPP, be it the county disaster emergency funds, or the SBA EIDL or EIDG, the grant, regardless of that, what we found is that a lot of individuals were calling, and we're going to speak specifically to the African-American community that I spoke with. It was a matter of 3 or 4 days later calling me, well, Bridget, what I need to have, and it's like, wait, you're too late, the money's gone. See, what you mentioned, when you mention a Ruth Chris, they can pay somebody to where at a moment's notice, if there's funding available, they can send over that documentation. So what we have to do to prepare to be ready for the next round of funding, because more money is coming. And for us in these southern states, guess what? We haven't even hit hurricane season yet. Besides, Mississippi is affected. So the key thing I would say would be documentation.
And it's actually funny because I believe Carl just mentioned about how people will come about the will and say, well, I don't have one. And I do believe that in our communities, I know you guys can speak more to it, and I would love to get your opinion. How can some of us remove the trust, the lack of trust, to trust somebody to do that financial documentation? So I think what I've noticed a lot with restaurant owners specifically that I've worked with, they don't have that trust to that financial documentation, that tax preparation, that bookkeeping, and therefore they can't get the grant. So one of you guys want to speak on, when it comes to like that lack of documentation, what are some tools, resources that they can use to do that?
I like to go, every business, you need to have a certified public accountant. Because while you might be a business owner, you might have that knack. You could have a restaurant, you cook great food, but you might not know how to do your books. It's too much. So you have to build that trust. And I find it, if you can find within your networking group, there has to be someone that can say, you know what, let's try Barry Watson CPA. I'm just throwing his name out. I went to Hampton with him. And he's here in Atlanta off of Glenwood. Excellent accountant, excellent. He can sit down with you. He can help you with your books. Even Malcolm Lewis, he's here in Atlanta too. But you need someone, because while you're running that business from day to day, those finances, you don't have the knack for it. If you got to pay someone to do your books, pay them, because you doing your books might get you in trouble, might get you in jail, you know. But just having that resource, being able to go out to somebody, and you find it if you know how to network appropriately.
Yeah, that's good. Renee, would you want to chime in on like what's next for these businesses that did not receive the SBA?
Well, I want
what you're seeing.
Sure, of course. Keep in mind that there was $60 billion set aside the second round. So there's still money out there. But as both Bridget and Michelle have said, it's about maintaining good records. It's about not being the person who's doing your books. I am adamant that in order to do things well, you have to let people do it in their lane. So again, you may have someone who can cook really well. They might have they can do a great nightclub, but their books, they're kind of concerned about their books because they're trying to do it themselves. Well, that's not a good look. When you're doing your budget, make sure that you budget for a bookkeeper or you budget for a CPA. But I don't want you to get one willy-nilly. I need you to do some research, check with your peers, check with other business owners and say, because I know someone who did $1 million 1 year and their CPA went ghost. And so he's had to do a lot of stuff with the IRS because he didn't have a good CPA. I have a fantastic CPA. She's awesome. I've been in business for 19 years and I haven't had to do anything with the IRS when it comes to my business finances. So from that standpoint, it's a good thing. One of the things that people have to do is to make sure that you have your licenses in order, your certifications in order, your filings in order. You must file things on time. One of the reasons why that first round that we didn't get in as a collective community is because they changed the rules halfway through. So that was one of the things that happened. But the other thing is that it said that you had to have your stuff filed. Well, if you didn't have your 2019 stuff filed, that sets you back a little bit. And so making sure that you're filing your quarterly taxes on time. I have a business partner who I almost went through the roof. I invested some money in her new business, and I was asking about the PPP loans. I said, you can get this loan, and I know that your people are 1099s, but there's money out here, let's get it. She had never done the 1099s. I'm like, what? No. You can't not do that. So you need to make sure that you're filing everything appropriately on time. The 1099s have to be filed by January 31st every year. It doesn't matter. If you take the time to file stuff appropriately, that's one less thing you have to worry about for your documentation.
Okay. It's actually funny. I was having a conversation with somebody this weekend about the 1099s and how some restaurants pay their staff cash. Can any of you speak on, would you recommend restaurants doing that, or should they actually have them set up on like a payroll where they're doing the payroll tax? And does that matter?
Well, can I answer that one?
Go ahead.
For that one, let me give you some background about Heartland. Heartland Payment System we were acquired by Global Payments in 2015, and we have 5 strong business solutions. One being merchant processing. That's my lane. When I can't remember, I think Bridget or Renee said you got to stay in your lane. That's my lane. I'm dangerous enough, I stay in that lane. We also have payroll, point of sale, e-commerce, and I'm also going to talk about lending because this is where we can help our business owners here. But it's important to have payroll because that's where a lot of companies, when they go under, that's the first thing. If they didn't do everything right, the Uncle Sam's going to come for you, making sure you have those 940s, your filings for your payroll, your 941s, making sure that you're properly taking out the right tax. That again shows where you need that CPA, because the little bookkeeper, she can only do but so much, but the CPA can be like, hey, we might want to change this structure. But when you have a true payroll processing company, that can back you, that can, answer your questions in the event you're ever audited. And that's one thing that Heartland does. We pride ourselves on all our business solutions, but with payroll, we're going to represent you. When you get that IRS letter, God forbid you get one, just pass it over to the team at Heartland. We're going to take care of it for you. And you got to have your payroll. You can't be paying people underneath the table, above the table, to the side of the table, because all that's going to come back and hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, because I was alerted this weekend that a lot of restaurants, due to how they pay their employees, could have possibly hindered them receiving funding. And that's why when I heard Ms. Renee speak about the 1099, I thought that was actually quite interesting to bring that upon light. Carl, I know you in the insurance lane, and when it comes to this documentation, how many Black-owned businesses or restaurants do you see that come in that try to get insurance in their business? Do you see that? Well,
let me tell you about that, because see, I don't do commercial insurance. I do life and health insurance. Mm-hmm. So when I talk to a business owner or individual, most of the time they just trying to protect themselves. Another thing too that a lot of business owners don't understand, let's say if you had a key employee, you could actually put insurance on a key employee. That means that's vital to your business. Like, let's say restaurant owners, if you're a chef, you don't want to worry about the business part. You want to work on your craft. So that means that general manager that you have managing the business side of your restaurant, you might want to put insurance on that person, because they're a key part of your business. Matter of fact, they are the key part of your business because you're focusing on the creative side. And then with that, one thing that I also wanted to talk about, if you have a business partner, there's another thing called buy and sell agreement, meaning that both business partners would put insurance policies on each other just in case something happens to the other person. Because let's say if you had a business partner and that person pass away and die, or have a heart attack and they can't do the things that they were able to do before that, now you have to deal with, I guess, the spouse. That spouse may not know anything about the business and may not want anything to do with the business. So that's, go ahead.
I was like, if I'm a restaurant owner, how do I determine who should I insure? Is in let's say if I have 4 amazing chefs, I got Chef Bridget, Chef Renee, Chef Carl, then I got Chef Michelle. If I'm looking at all 4 of my chefs, how can I determine who should I insure? Is it only the top chef?
It's called Key Man Insurance. Yep, it's called Key Man Insurance for a reason. So
you gotta determine who's the most valuable. It might not just be 1, it could be 2, it might be 3. But that's what Go ahead.
So when they do get this money, one of the things they need to do is insure somebody. They need to insure.
You can't use this money to do that.
Well, I know y'all. I got some more questions. Y'all gonna talk about some more.
Yeah.
And as an underwriter, as an underwriter for small business loans, what we look at is ownership. What is the highest percentage of ownership, or at least 20% ownership or more? That can be one of the indicators that you can use to determine who would be would get off the Key Man Insurance too.
Okay. Oh, that's y'all get some good answers.
You want to make sure that you have your organization properly legalized. And I'm gonna let Carl talk about that, but there's LLC, there's sole proprietorship, there's S Corp, there's C Corp. So you need to know which one you are, and you need to know which one works best for your particular situation.
I've been waiting for this one. Oh yeah.
So yeah, you know what, Carl? This is actually gonna go into our next question. So if you want to lead with this one, is how should businesses prepare their financial records to be prepared for future funding opportunities? But can you speak on it? I know the lady's gonna speak on it from a banking perspective. And they already kind of have already with the documentation. But can you speak on it from a legal perspective on, I'm a chef, just started. I'm selling 800 meals a week, but I haven't set myself up yet. Oh, God bless you. Or I haven't set up that. Which one should I set up? How should they go with determining that?
Let me tell you something. Legal Shield has a great program called Launched by Legal Shield. And the main goal of Launched by Legal Shield is to make sure that they cover and take care of everything that you need to get your business started correctly. What they would do is they will call you once you set everything up, and you will talk with a lawyer directly to help you set up your business correctly. They're going to ask questions on what type of business you have, like you say, what type of entity you want to do, and they will give you the pros and the cons of each one and work with you on what are your long-term goals. Well, how many employees you plan on having. They'll cover all that for you. They also have another program called Go Small Biz, which also the ladies were talking about CPAs. They have a program there that help you do a CRM, keep up with your customers, keep up with your money. They do basic CPA, set up your website, HR documents, unlimited online consulting. And that's Go Small Biz. So they have a couple of different programs that can either help you get started properly, or if you're already in business, streamline your business a little bit better.
And actually, I was talking to Black Restaurant Week, and they told me, make sure everybody who's listening double check, your local chamber of commerce, the Black Chamber of Commerce. They, I know a lot of times we so focused on product. You either need to have somebody around you that's going to tell you these things, or seek out these opportunities, because those relationships matter when it comes to situations like these. They have the resources for people that can offer up, so many things. And I know, ladies, you guys earlier were talking about documentation, CPA, having that proper things. Is there anything else that you would recommend businesses, especially restaurants, they should have in place to prepare for future funding? What was one thing you say you guys think that they should have?
One thing, if I can address, if you're looking at what they call the SBA, the larger loans are the Community Advantage loans, which are loans that are over $101,000 up to $500,000. One thing that we do look at is we want to see that you have different certifications in place and that they are current, and you have revisited those certifications, because what that tells us as a lender is that you are making sure that you're staying abreast of the changes, the legal changes in your industry. So that's something that, again, like Renee had mentioned before, the change of the game. A lot of times we play the game and we get accustomed to one set of rules, but they've changed. So that's one thing that I noticed this year that we've been really looking at when we're underwriting SBA files for our restaurant owners. And I think that's something that should be looked at. And as far as with the PPP that's out now, I know Lyft Fund we're still taking PPP applications. And there are a lot of other of our bank partners that are taking them. I work with all the banks, and I have banks that are calling me now saying, hey, Bridget, we've opened back up. And the reason being is what we're talking about on this call. A lot of the files are not accepted. So if you haven't filed your 2019 taxes, which most of the restaurants have not, because they've had to transition to pack and go, we will accept the interim. Make sure you have your year to date. If you have like Heartland is really great. We love to see that, because we know that that's being tracked for you as far as your 940s, your 951s, but making sure that that's in place. And also the other thing that we're seeing with the PPP, particularly for our contractors, the 1099s, you had asked the question earlier, if you're not paying your employees, well, the key is this: if you can't prove it, you can't use it. That's the thing that we have when we underwrite loans. So the key is this: if you're receiving money, you should set it up in an account. I don't care if it's an operating account, but in an account, and then you write yourself a check from that. You pay yourself a 1099. I'm not a tax professional. I'm just presenting information from what we look at when we underwrite these SBA loans.
Makes sense. I like to jump in. I mentioned that one of Heartland's business solutions is lending. I just want to go over a few things. Heartland has a partnership with Lendio, and back on April the 6th, it was announced by Wells Fargo that they were stopped taking applications. The relationship with Lendio is we work with businesses who might not even process with Heartland with their credit cards, for instance, helping them with the loan application, helping them get through the point of getting that loan number that's from the SBA. So hand holding their hands, working with them side by side. Another thing with this COVID-19, we can honestly say this is an eye opener. No one would have dreamed that this would have happened. You know what I'm saying? Nobody would have dreamed. But I'm hoping that business owners, whether you have a small restaurant, whether you have a small restaurant to a large restaurant, that you put contingency plans in place. You have to be able to think, we got to think outside the box. And I go to restaurants right now. I'm trying to get them to think, okay, your dining room's not open. Heartland's offering free online ordering. So with that being said, if Carl can go on Bridget's website, click on the link, order his food, submit his credit card, Carl has completed that process. Bridget's going to get paid. It's up to Carl to get to that restaurant and pick up that food. If that food is not picked up, Bridget can donate it to a shelter or, just give it away. So the thing is, how do we think outside of the box? And I think Bridget talked about, we don't want to change. This is going to make people change, because you cannot have your traditional, oh, I got my dining room, I'm good. Well, what happened if we have a hurricane, tsunami, whatever, natural disaster? Your restaurant should still function. To date, I'll give you a statistic from April 15th, tax day. At that time, Heartland had processed 560 loans for merchants totaling $130 million. So there is money out there. We're still processing. And I would encourage people, if you want to get more information about that, you can get my contact information from Jackie.
All right. Renee, did you want to step in on that one?
The ladies did a great job. The one thing that I want people to not forget is the Department of Labor. Make sure that you're paying those taxes and that insurance premium for your Department of Labor. Sometimes as business owners, they get busy and they forget about that. I'm really good about making sure my stuff gets done. One quarter I missed it, and I had to pay a ridiculous, huge fine, but I paid it because I want to make sure my stuff stays on target. So being in business for over 19 years, you kind of make sure that you get those things done. But the Department of Labor is very, very important, especially those who are doing W-2s, so that you're making sure that people in a time like this, you're taken care of. The other thing that I wanted to say was I'm a life insurance agent too, but it's important that your business is insured. So my business is insured for over $1 million. That's my capacity for my business. But it's so important that your business is insured, and you want to make sure that when you're looking at your policy, that it covers some of the things that Michelle was talking about, the things that you weren't thinking about, the contingency plans. And when you're going to a credit union or a bank or a third-party administrator to get a type of a loan, you're showing those documentation. So when you're showing stuff like that, they know you mean business. What's important for people who don't have a business relationship is to have your stuff that's neat. Don't pay the babysitter out of the cash register. Make sure that you are. I teach financial grant management. It's important that you make sure that there is a clean paper trail of where you're spending your money and how you're paying it out. And even if you don't have a CPA or an accountant, if you are keeping your files the best you can using a software package and it's neat and it's understandable, that will get you processed. But it's always better to have a CPA. But if you don't, make sure that your stuff is very neat and orderly. Stay organized if you can. The minute you become disorganized, it becomes a problem to get processed and get your documents into your lender.
And it's actually interesting because, like, going into the next question, we understand that relationships are important. And actually what I've found working with a lot of restaurants, I think we tend to stay into the restaurant bubble and don't go outside of that. Relationships with bankers, relationship with lenders, relationship with insurance, relationships with the local politicians in your district or your community where you serve. With that being said, how can businesses build better relationships with their banks? Because there's been talks about how some banks and people have been receiving funding because they lack a relationship with the bank. The bank hasn't processed. Like the fact that we know that Ruth Chris got the loan immediately, and it was certain banks that did not process the loans. But can you talk about how restaurants can break out of the uncomfortable shell of leaving their restaurant bubble and building better relationships with their banks? What are some of the things they can do?
I know it's what we look at when we're looking at a file is we do look at the relationships that they do have. One would be our conventional banks. Those are your big banks, your Chase, your Wells Fargo, et cetera, Bank of America, et cetera, banks like that. But also it would be good if you have a credit union, because credit union offers different things. There's different type of lendings for different type of scenarios. And it's also good to have an SBA intermediary. And that's where your Lyft funds come into play. Each one of those entities receive money in different ways and for different things. And so how do you develop those relationships? One thing that I'm a big advocate on and have been for many, many years is in all of the communities, particularly in Atlanta, your small business development centers, they're there for you. They're funded by the SBA. SBA teaches those business advisors on, hey, this is what you need to give to the community. So when they come to us for funding, they're ready. Yeah. So I would encourage you to search. I think Georgia State has one. Search out your SBAs in your particular area, the small business development centers in your areas, and also the women's business centers. Yep. And as far as our Lyft fund, I know Stephanie is there in that area. It's where Stephanie Bolden in Atlanta. And then Dallas, we have the Women's Business Center because they have the free classes. They have the software. All the software is built around SBA and what it takes to get lending. So you ask, how do you engage as our restaurateurs and our restaurant, our taco, right? In Houston, we have a lot of taco trucks. Okay, taco trucks, barbecue trucks. The key is this: in your area, you are in a community. And all those bankers and our lenders, we communicate. Yeah. We communicate. So the first thing is go to your local bank and ask them, who do they network with? What would be a good credit union in this? I can tell you a good credit union in the area. The one that services where you have your restaurant. There's a community credit union there. Okay. And then as far as the merchant services, that's really big because merchant services is just, we look at it like QuickBooks. If you need to know how you move your money, where you're getting paid, your documentation, you should be able to push a button and there it is. And we have what we need. Like you said, all things decent and in order. And decent that's in order. Work as well.
All right. I can tell, I think Renee got some wisdom she want to input on. I can just tell. So Renee, go ahead and give us some of that wisdom on how we can build better relationships with banks. So we're not scrambling. When I can make that phone call and say, hey, Renee, can you push this loan through? I'm about to send it to you right now.
Okay. So no one does that. So that's that. No one does that. But everything that Bridget said was right on target. What I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to say was, to be successful, if you might want to share resources. And for instance, if there's another restaurant owner and you guys can buy stuff together and half it out or divvy it up or something like that, it's important to share resources. And so whenever you can, you want to do that. Another way to share resources is to talk to people about which banking relationships do you have and who works best for you. I have a bank account at Wells Fargo. I have three business credit union accounts. I have 5 personal credit union accounts. And it's not because I have a whole lot of money. It's because I have a whole lot of business. And so I want to make sure that my businesses are kept straight. And so I don't have to worry about that. But especially credit unions, they want to see you win. Credit unions they're not run for profit. They want to make a profit, but it's not driven like banks are. Banks' return on investment are their profits. Credit unions are their service to their membership. How are they making sure that their community and their members are being served and served well? And so it's so important that and you can go to your credit union and you can just say, I have a business. I really want to establish a relationship. Especially after this COVID situation, I need to make sure that you know me and I know you. And then this is the customer service part of me. Bring them something from your truck, or bring them something from your restaurant so that they'll remember you. Oh yeah, it's great food. Oh yeah, give them a discount, give them a coupon for their staff. Do something memorable so that they remember you.
I agree. Go ahead, Carl. Look like you want to go ahead and say something. Go ahead.
I have a shameless plug here. I've been a veteran. I'm a veteran of the United States Navy, and I've been with the Navy Federal Credit Union since 1988. I'm kind of sort of telling my age, but I love the credit union. So I'm 100% on that. And everything that Renata said, definitely do that because they love saying yes.
Yes, they do.
They love saying yes. Go ahead.
Can I jump in?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. To piggyback off Renee and Bridget and Carl, keyword is networking. Go to your local Black chamber, wherever you are. There has to be a Black chamber with businesses and everything. But 2 things to remember, and Renee touched on it. The banks want to make a spread. Credit union wants to make members go up, or that's your true source of networking there. And one other thing I wanted to say before we got on this subject, in order to make sure your paperwork's right, put a calendar together when your documents are due, when your registrations are due with the state, when your taxes are due, when everything is due. Even if you got to put down when payroll's due, you might do it every other week, but put that calendar together because then you get in a regiment. And you put it up in your cube or your office. You check it every day. What's due today? Send yourself a meeting maker, a reminder. So, and have a buddy system. That's also important too. Well, while you're doing that networking, somebody that's been in the industry longer than you, ask them to be your mentor. And they can show you the ropes.
And I think another thing that I would add, what I would tell restaurants, anybody who's listening, any business you offering, if you have kind of like what Ms. Renee said, if you have a great product and you know it's good, and Carl and Legal Shield is getting ready to have a business meeting and it's 50 of them, say, hey, you know what? How many people gonna be at your meeting? 50. Okay, we're gonna bring sandwiches for one meeting. That might cost you, let's say $100, but that relationship will take you further than that $100. So also keep in mind, whether it's your banker, your tax person, your CPA, your lawyer, all of those people, you should be able to call them and they should be willing to do anything for you. Now, don't wait to the last minute, because I think a lot of times we so focused on a restaurant, we don't think about the other things, and those are the things that's going to help. So make sure you guys definitely do those things as well. You can afford to spend $100 worth of food. Trust me, $100, $200. You can afford that. So with that being said, what are some of the other financial resources and opportunities that you guys noted that small businesses, restaurants and or other businesses tend to overlook? Like we know of the SBA. Like I know the Small Business Development Center is one, for example. Like they helped me get my federal trademark for my business. And I've been knowing about them since I was college because I'm only like 28. So I use them for other things. They actually did operations research for me too. But what are some of the other things outside of small business development centers and things like that that businesses tend to overlook that they should know about?
There are grants out there as well, and you can go to I don't know if it's grants.gov. I'm not sure what it is, but there's a federal site that has grants, and believe it or not, grants you don't have to pay them back, but you have to have your documents in order to get that. You want to get a qualified grant writer, not someone who says I know how to do it, someone who can tell you, oh, I have gotten funded for these grants that I have done. So that's a good way to do that. The other thing is grocery stores. Grocery stores will give out some grants. They'll give out some assistance. It's just and also like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, your bottlers, they may have programs that will work with you, helping you be a better business person. They may have mentors for you. They may have paid staff that can come and help your business. So don't be too eager to have to do it by yourself. It is not a business that you have to run alone. You need to find people who will help you. And there are many people out there. The colleges, they may need people who might need to learn how to be a general partner, how to be a chef. Utilize those trade organizations and those 2-year colleges or the 4-year universities that have make yourself someone's project. I love interns. Interns want to do well. They want to show you what they know. They want to show you, I got this. So use those people to help. If you need a new business plan, if you need marketing plan, if you need social media, get with the young people.
And it's actually funny. One of us is not greater than all of us. And I think if our culture understood that, we would probably go further. Bridget or Carl or Michelle, you guys want to add anything to what other resources or groups or communities that they should be looking into?
Renee stole my answer with the grants.
Oh, sorry. That's because I'm a grant writer. Sorry.
I figured when you said don't just get anyone, I said, uh-oh.
Yeah, you don't want to get somebody that can write because the qualifications. I know somebody who got two seven-figure grants. That and it's a process, but you got to get the right person. If you don't, you did.
There's something that came to me while we were having this conversation. You were talking about how to make it easier for people to go to a lender or to a network. You want to think, if I'm a restaurant owner, I want to think about who do I want to vouch for me. So if you're not networking and people don't know who you are, then they can't. But we all have a group of friends, and we all have somebody that we can say, well, she can vouch for me or he can vouch for me. That's what you're looking at when you're building your relationships with the professional people who are going to help you run your business, your accountants, your CPAs, your lawyers, your attorneys, all of those people, your tax accountants, those people, and your businesses. What's the name of your business, Michelle? Heartland? Heartland. She's on.
Yeah, the company I work for, Heartland Payment Systems.
Heartland Payment Systems. Payment systems are good. There are many different kinds. I suggest you check out Michelle because those payment systems will really, really help you fund your business and keep you in cash. So you want to make sure that you have that payment processing system down, whatever it is, you make sure you have it down. You want to look at, and the one thing that we don't do, we don't look at the interest rate. There's organizations that will say, we can fund you. Look at the interest rate. You don't want to be paying for something over and over and over again. Make sure that you get a decent rate for your credit worthiness.
That's good. Go ahead, Carl. I know you want to speak on something. Go ahead.
I'm going to talk about it from a legal standpoint because I talk to a lot of small businesses. That's my main focus, small businesses and employee benefits. When I'm talking to a lot of restaurant owners, and just letting them know what I do and why I'm out here, especially in my community. I'm here because I want to help y'all. I want to help everybody in the community because we're lacking. Okay, we're lacking the support. One thing I hear is that, hey, I got a lawyer. And I start laughing because I'm like, okay, does your lawyer cover all 15 areas of law?
Right.
What's your lawyer's practice? And they can't tell me. They can't tell me. So that's another reason why when you have Legal Shield and it's affordable, number one. Number two, you have unlimited daily consulting. You could call them 5 times, 6 times a day. May it be trivial or may it be traumatic. They're going to answer. They're going to get back with you within 4 hours. And it's a monthly fee. And I'm pretty sure that and I'm not going over price or nothing like that, but I'm pretty sure that you can fit this in your budget because it's affordable for the small business owner to have unlimited legal coverage. Some of these questions that you may have, you might not have the access to the right people to give you the right information. Sometimes you might not want to. A lot of people get secondhand information. How do you know that's the correct information that you're receiving?
Mm-hmm. And anybody, I know the audience is asking questions. We're going to open up questions pretty soon. So if you have questions, write them down, and because you guys are going to be able to ask all of them specific questions. You know what, Bridget and Michelle, I would like to ask you guys on your opinion on if a restaurant is transitioning potentially from a culinary business to a brick and mortar. There's some people out there that obviously still doing good. Like Bridget, we know TLH is still killing the game in Houston. Like that's something we know. But like for the restaurants out there who have a culinary business for the people, and they're potentially looking at a brick and mortar, what steps should they take financially to prepare their business for a permanent location? And should they still consider that? Or should they just focus on the culinary business?
I think a lot of research needs to go into that before they do that, meaning where's your clientele coming from and who does your clientele have access to? Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is who do you have access to, which is to your previous question you asked as far as some resources is one is foundations. You really want to look at your foundations because if you are catering to a foundation, foundations give grants to small businesses, big time. I mean, look at, we got $50 million from Goldman Sachs. A city foundation, $10 million to start when the start of Lyft Fund, which was Oxyon at that time. But your foundations. But when you look at, if I want to go to brick and mortar, make sure you know your overhead, you know your area, you know your cost factors and who is visiting that area. And more importantly, now that we have COVID-19 in place, look and see what that area is doing. Now is a great time to at least drive around, have your mask on, at least if you're in Texas. But drive around, who's open, who's essential. Because that's going to tell you if you're going into a brick and mortar is who you have the possibility of coming to your location. That's now, true. When we're underwriting, we're looking at underwriting SBA loans, one of the questions on there is who are you getting your technical assistance from? So it is important that you are, looking at your HBCUs. HBCUs and their internship programs are awesome. If you're talking about, I want to go to a brick and mortar, you should go to some local HBCUs, and we have some great ones. And the reason why I say that is because they produce productive people. But you go to an HBCU, an intern, and you say, you know what, I'm looking at a brick and mortar. Have them put together your whole plan. One of my sorors, she had opened up a Greek shop. We only have one here in Houston. And so what we did when I was at SBDC, the College of Business, you know what we did? We took a class. It was a summer, 6-week class, summertime, and they put together her whole marketing plan. So after that, what she was able to determine was, okay, do I want to open up over here in Southmoreland or do I want to go online? Same thing with the restaurant industry. Do your research, and not what people say, but you have to know your numbers. before you determine I want to go into brick and mortar, and then you have a COVID-19 and it's like, okay, how can I shift? Because guess what? Right now, your culinary skills are probably would be excellent right now because that's your, what we call pack and go, your food and go. Hopefully that addressed the question.
Yeah, that was good because I think a lot of people don't do the research. And I definitely think branding, coming from my business, branding does matter, especially when you're moving from culinary to brick and mortar, because what this COVID-19 did do, it just uncovered people's brands.
Yeah.
It's only the good brands will survive.
Yeah.
Only reason I'm using this because I know Bridget lives in stays in Houston. Turkey Leg Cut is a restaurant that my business does advertising for every time we go to Houston. And when we typically would go there, it's about a 2 to 3 hour wait just to get a turkey leg. They still have a line with the COVID-19. They still have a line of people waiting. So I would recommend to add to that financially, but from a digital branding standpoint, make sure everybody, your brand is on point, it's authentic, it's true, because people who have great brands, especially for all of you guys who've been in the industry 20, 30 years, you see the people who come are just a fly-by-nights, but the people who last are the brand sustainers. So I want you guys to keep that down, brand sustainers. Michelle, I'm going to have you go into our last question. Then everybody else, you can jump on this one as well. I know you spent some time on Wall Street. You did some wealth management. So can you talk about what are lenders looking for when funding a business? And then what are indicators of a good business investment? Because I know sometimes, we've been talking about bookkeeping, CPA, make sure your books is tight. You know, if I'm a lender and I have this money, how do I know as a restaurant owner, as a business owner, as a service provider, my business is a good investment?
Okay. Well, I want to pick up where Bridget left off. That all comes down to doing your homework, knowing your audience, that business plan, and also put a budget together. Where a lot of us fall short, we don't have that budget. And we spend what we don't have, living above our means and everything. When you're trying, or you're dreaming, well, if I open up this business, this is going to happen. But to answer your question about what a lender is looking at, they want to see some strong financials. Even if you're a new business, they want to see that you're constantly growing. When they look at your bank statements and everything, and I'm just saying from what Heartland will probably ask for it from with the lending team, they want to make sure you have 6 months of bank statements. So don't submit anything for a loan if you're running in the negative every single month. You know what I mean? So they want to see that you're strong. At the same time, they may even look for your what you're processing, your merchant services, making sure they're strong. Because if you ask to borrow, let's say $50,000, and you're only bringing in $800 a month, nobody's going to give you a loan for $50,000. They're going to look at you like, well, what's wrong? You know, and also making sure those financials have to be tight. They got to be tight and right. No gaps in everything. Everything goes back to that budget. When you have your budget in place, when you meet with your financial person, you might have a controller for your small business. You might just have your senior accountant. But making sure that you're looking over all those expenses and the income that's coming in.
What is anybody can answer this as well. For those who may not know, that are not financially sound, what is a good growth rate?
Actually, your small business development centers, we have all that data. And because if you do your business plan and you say, well, my projection, I'm projecting to grow 20%, we already know what the particular restaurants do in a given season. So that information can be obtained from your small business development centers. And depending on your restaurant, your platform, meaning if you are if you're a street vendor, or if you're just do private dinners, or it depends on what your platform is what your growth rate is. It may be 5% for your industry, or it may be 50% if you're a franchise. If you branded yourself well enough, and then in that 10th year, you say, now I can go into a franchise. So then your growth rate, we're probably going to look at your business plan and your projections to say, okay, if they're saying it's 15%, you're in line. So no, that's what we mean by know your numbers. And also let me give you this for my restaurateurs that are Schedule C. On your Schedule C, if line number 31 is negative, you're not going to be able to get, I know you won't be able to get PPP.
Tell them what line 31 is for those who don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They may
Line
not know.
31 is profit or loss.
P&L.
P&Ls. That's on when you do your tax returns, you have your 1040 for personal, and then you have your Schedule C for contract. A lot of your contractors, they function as a sole proprietorship. I know a lot of my restaurateurs still function as a sole proprietorship, which check with your tax accountant, but if you're under $250,000 in revenues, that's probably sustainable for you, possibly. But as you know, I'm sure Carl can allude to, from a protection standpoint, as a SBA, we're like, ooh, that's kind of scary, because we know if you get sued, if you feed me, if I come to your truck and I get a taco that stays with me for a few days, and I come back and sue you, you're probably going to be out of business.
Yeah.
So when you're functioning as a sole proprietorship, and so when we're looking at that, so SBA is looking at your finances when, you know, when Michelle said, make sure it's right and tight. Those are the specifics of what we're looking at, your structure, how you filing your tax returns. Okay, whoever told us that you write off everything,
They in jail.
that's the majority of us that didn't get along.
Ooh,
That's not
say that
true.
again one more time so everybody can hear
Whoever
that.
told us you write off everything and you show a negative, you're not going to get along.
Right.
The laws did change to where they said after 3 years, you show a negative on your Schedule C. You know what that is? That's not a business, that's a hobby. That's a law that changed about 2 years ago, because we started changing how we underwrite at that time. So what does that mean? That means it goes back to what you said in the beginning, Jeremy. It means that you have to know your business plan, your market, and don't go out there and bring on a new product. Bring on a new product when you can't finance that product. You may have to wait another, 12 months or another season, because you should be tracking monthly as far as how much you make this time of the year. That's how we're able to say, go back on the PPP and say, or they're not doing the EIDL right now, but that's how we're able to say, wait a minute, this hit in March, give me December, January, and February, and year 2018. Because we can look at what you did then, what you made then, and then we can determine how much we need to give you now on this loan.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at. So that's when Michelle says it and Renee said, when we say make sure it's right and tight, that's what we're looking at. And your legal structure, it does matter.
So would you say that when loans are looking at indicators of a good or bad in business investment, if they see a sole proprietor and they see that negative, because I can write off this new laptop, I can write off this new equipment, I can write off these clothes, I can write off this haircut, I can write off my hairdo. If they see all that, essentially what they're saying is, let's pause the brakes.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons that a lot of these companies that everybody was so upset that they got could have been because of a lender is looking at their structure and say, okay, well, I have this who's probably is doing good profit wise, but their book's not set up, documentation not right, set up as a sole proprietor, versus we had Carl Corp, they're set up. They got everybody on payroll. They doing the payroll taxes. They paying everything. The lawyer didn't told them everything. The accountant told them everything. So here you go. Here's $30 million. So now I can kind of see why a lot of people aren't getting that money, but they're upset, but they have to really step back and take the documentation. So and we're going to open up. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If somebody is a S Corp or a C Corp, first of all, let's take a look that their gross revenues are a certain amount of money. Most of our restaurateurs, they don't fall in that category. A majority of them, now Turkey Hut, Houston Sauce Company, they fall in that category. But a lot of them don't fall in that category. So you can't, and I'm not a tax professional, it'd be good if you ask a tax professional, if you would, Jeremy. Ask the tax professional if a person is set up as an LLC and they file form number 2351, is that better for them from a legal standpoint?
All right, and that's where you guys consult a tax professional, because we're not gonna do it for you. So thank you guys so much. Y'all did some good. Oh, don't worry, we're about to go into some more questions. So those are the standardized questions we have. We're gonna open it up for 15 minutes for anybody who's on the call. You guys can ask questions, whether it's general or specific. Carl, I wanted to go to you first because I've seen somebody ask a question. I'm gonna pull it up here and I want to read it to you. And then every question after there, I'll just ask, and you guys can feel free to join in. Someone asks, and this can be for Carl and anybody. Someone asks, what are some avenues to get certified as a minority business?
Ooh. Let me tell you something. I'm part of the Atlanta Black Chamber, and we have a lot of good people within the organization there. I'm gonna pass this on to the ladies. I know one of the ladies have the answer to this question. So,
I know in Houston, the city of Houston would be really good. The Women's Business Center, and the Women's Business Center, by the way, is funded by SBA. So in your area, if you have a Women's Business Center, they can walk you through that process, as well as the Small Business Development Center. If they can also walk you through that process, but the key thing is that you go to your city organizations. And in Houston, like I said, I know it's the city of Houston, they have a program that will help you get your contracts in place.
Yes, somebody just commented, Houston Business Opportunity Office offers classes weekly on certification. So I'm gonna assume that they offer that in any other city as well. Any of you other ladies or a gentleman would like to join in on that question on what are some avenues to get certified as a minority business?
I would check with your chamber, your local chamber. And like we mentioned before, most cities have a Black chamber, like Atlanta has a Atlanta Black Chamber Association, and just go from there. You should be able to get some guidance.
Also, Government Contractors Association, GCA, Government Contractors Association. Minority-owned business, veteran-owned business, minority-owned business. So they're a good resource to use.
And Carl, I know you can attest to this. I know my uncle was a veteran. They offer a lot of things for veterans as well. I don't know if a lot of people understand. They have a lot of resources, especially for veterans as well. So if there's a lot of veteran owners, restaurant owners, business owners, feel free to research that information, because they do have a lot of information that can really, really help you guys.
A lot of grants also.
So here's the next. Go ahead.
I said a lot of grants. Like if you're a vet, you'd be eligible for.
Oh yeah, a lot of grants, and make sure you guys have the documentation in there, right? So here's another question. This can go to anybody. What's inherent in some of the comments on underwriting is implicit bias. What's some advice you all have when things are in place but not getting approval still?
The files and I have this COVID-19, I've processed more files in this few months than I have in a year's time, to be very honest with you. And we're not through yet, because we have, we're not through yet. When you throw out not having your bank statements, not filing your tax returns, not commingling your money, I haven't addressed or seen any bias. Now that's on my end. I work with all the banks. And that's not to say that it does not exist. But what we're saying here, and I pray that you hear me, these are things that we keep talking about, and see, sometimes you just have to stop and put this stuff in place. I'm telling you, this is why we're not getting the funding. And all these reports coming out saying Black businesses aren't doing it. Black businesses built this country.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, you would think that people want to support us, but you're right. There are some things that happen, but when you have this documentation in place, then you have a voice.
Yes.
Then you have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to stop going off of personal credit and build our business credit. Business credit is like having a baby, meaning that as soon as your business is born, you have that EIN number. Guess what? You have a clean slate of credit, and you start building it over a certain time. NAV.com, NAV.com is a great resource to talk about business credit, because that's another thing that I have seen as well that will be looked at is your business credit when you get into your larger loans for our restaurateurs. And they really look at that if you're looking at going brick and mortar. They look at your business credit, okay, your business score. So to answer the question, as far as the bias, because it's a Black-owned business, it's about the money.
Yeah, it's about the money.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it comes back.
Renee.
Go ahead, Renee.
Go ahead, Michelle, and then I'm gonna
Michelle.
give it to Renee because I saw Renee moving. So go ahead, Michelle. Then I'm gonna give it to Renee.
Again, it comes back to being tight and right. I mean, you know, you can't think, well, oh, woe is me, but did you have all your documents in place? Did you meet all the requirements of what they're asking for, you know, for the loan you're trying to get? And if your paperwork is raggedy, I'm sorry. It needs to be right. Again, this is a wake-up call because a lot of these businesses are going to go back. I'm hoping they'll go back to the drawing board. And if they have been able to stay open during this worldwide crisis, well, what do I need to make sure I will never have an interruption again? You know, and if I do, it's something that was out of my control, like this pandemic. But can I get the money when I need the money? And if you don't use the money, pay back the money. But again, everything we gotta cross those T's and dot those I's.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And when you do that, I know this is one person that will fight for you. And you in your banking industry, particularly, there are not that many of us anyway. We will fight for you. When we know that it's right and there's a bias, trust me, we'll fight for you. And like I tell people, you can't take me to the poker game, but you can definitely take me to the fight.
Mm-hmm. And it's actually funny that people say that, because when I do look at restaurants who mainly don't get funding, they don't. It's something. If you've been in business 4 years, in the first 3 years it wasn't legit, and year 4 is legit, they still gonna look at that. They're not just gonna look at the first year you filed. They're gonna look at a history now. I was just watching something with farmers and how they was dispersing the money to farmers and how a lot of smaller farms wasn't having anything. And then they was pretty much talking about how if Renee owns a farm and I am a partner of the farm, she can get up to $250,000, and by me being a partner, I can get up to $250,000. But then the smaller farms didn't have their sons or their daughters listed as employees. They'll just, Carla had me as his son. He'll say, hey, just go out and tractor this, and I just give you $50 a week, instead of putting me on the payroll tax, deducting that money that's coming from the taxes. Government can look and say, okay, this person has employees, and I think that a lot of restaurants should, like Miss Michelle said, they should go to the drawing board and say, what can we do next? If you cannot receive money from government loans, do something different. Start a cooking channel with you doing meals. Maybe start doing meal plans. Maybe start offering delivery dinners for the people in your community. At the end of the day, for Black restaurants, we survive in our own communities. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, if you're in Houston and you're in Third Ward and your restaurant's in Third Ward will keep you. If you're in Atlanta and you're in Uptown community will keep you. But I think we have to get back into, and I know you guys can attest to this, being relationship builders in our community with the people that reside in that community. That's the one way you can really win if there's no governmental loans, governmental assistance, things like that. What would you guys say are crucial when it comes to building a budget? Somebody started from scratch. Let's say they budget keeping sucks. They tried it. It's terrible. What are some of the first things they need to look at when knowing how to allocate money when it comes to a budget?
A realistic budget. Know what your expenses are. Know how much it's going to cost for your rent, for the building, for your food, for your employees, all the insurance, the utilities, all the insurance stuff we've talked about, all of that stuff needs to be in place. I do want to say this, especially startups, it's hard to start up and pay people as a W-2, because as the employer, you have to match the Medicare and the Social Security. So as long as you have a clean paper trail, I cannot stress this enough, keeping a clean paper trail. So as it relates to your budget, that as well, you may do a budget and then see that the first month you were preparing food and you went over that budget. Then you need to amend that budget. I don't know if it was Bridget or Michelle that says that we want to make sure that we are looking back at what we're doing. We're tweaking it all the time. That tickler system, we're making sure, okay, I spent $50,000 on food last month, but this month I may need to spend 45. What does that budget look like? Going back to that budget, tweaking it if you need to. And the most important thing is make sure that you're forecasting properly. Do your research. Find out what's it going to take. Know exactly how many chicken dinners you need to sell to pay the rent.
To piggyback off Renee, when you're putting that budget together, think about things like training, your payroll, your taxes, your licenses, your registration, your cost of goods sold. All of that stuff are going to be all your expenses at the same time. You want to project, I want to make $10,000 a month. You can have a monthly budget. That'll be your income. Meals sold, for instance. Then we know if I got that $10,000 coming in, I'm gonna have some expenses going out. We know we gotta do taxes. We know we gotta do state registrations, all that stuff. And start it off as a shell. Have somebody that might have a better business sense look at it if you're not comfortable enough, but have a second set of eyes looking at that budget. And as Renee said, you're constantly tweaking. You're gonna have the budget, then you're gonna have the actuals. That's where you will see your true picture.
And can I just spin on that cost of goods sold? One thing that we look at on the financials is if your cost of goods sold is high, that lets us know that you do not have good negotiations in place with your vendors. And if that's one thing that you can consider doing is looking to see if you have co-ops in your area. Because with a co-op, that means that they're going to, whenever they buy, they're going to get lower rates and terms, better terms. So that's one thing. When your cost of goods are out of whack, they're too high, and that can cause a negative on your bottom line. That's, you may want to look at trying to negotiate with your vendors.
Carl, when it comes to legal field, how much should starting small business or small sole proprietor allocate for a legal budget? What is too much starting, and what is, I know you can't really give hard numbers, but what is, like, if you had to give an estimate, what do you think is a great estimate for a legal budget? And actually, ladies, then I open up to you after Carl answers. What do you think would be a great budget for getting somebody who's like a CPA? So go ahead, start, Carl.
Okay, that is a great question. On average, I could just say on average in Atlanta, just to retain a lawyer is going to cost you minimum on average about $300 an hour. Now, as far as with Legal Shield, if you don't have that budget of $300 an hour to talk to a lawyer, then that's why Legal Shield is here for the small business owner. We cover like 150 small business owners around the 50 states in the United States and in Canada. The one thing that I can say about Legal Shield is, like I said, you have unlimited access. So we're talking about a price range. You shouldn't have to pay. And I don't like doing this to lawyers or anything like that, because they're here to, they go to school for a long time and they get paid, and and they have their expertise. But as far as a business owner or a startup, if you don't have a budget, Legal Shield is a great opportunity for you. And we have a plan where it could cover up to 100 employees. If you have 100 employees or less, like $150 a month. And that's unlimited services as far as consulting, asking questions. If you got issues with zoning, if you have questions about hiring, firing, small claims, zoning, joint ventures, tenant, landlord disputes, customer complaints, vendor
Which
issues.
is probably what we would need right now, because the landlord, sorry to cut you off, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people assess legally what's going to happen with these landlords. And now I'm pretty sure if you go call a legal person who handle with real estate, I'm pretty sure their prices probably went up because now they got everybody calling them. So I think to your point, that's really good.
A lot of the small business and restaurant owners, you got to understand, you're going to have some type of employee handbook in place now. You're going to have your, like you say, your paperwork in order. Definitely, if you have any type of verbal contracts with vendors and stuff like that, you got to have all this stuff in order. And things like you said, has changed. So definitely, just having that access to affordable legal services, and it's a law firm. So like I said, you're not having one lawyer. You have access to all the lawyers and covering all the areas of law. So, yeah.
Let me ask you this question legally. I don't know if you might be able to answer this. Legally, if I'm a restaurant and somebody come in there without a mask and or gloves, and somebody potentially says they became sick, got the COVID-19 from a restaurant, how could a restaurant protect themselves from something like that? Should restaurants be telling everybody they must come in with gloves and masks?
A restaurant, is on them to make sure that they cover themselves. They can also definitely talk to their lawyer on the best way you have to have a contingency plan. You got to know what if this happens? What if that happens? You got to make sure all that is in place, and definitely have that information out to whoever comes into your restaurant. That's another reason why you got to make sure that you're covered. Definitely with Legal Shield, with one of the main plans. Let's say if you did get sued, you get like up to 75 total hours a year of trial defense. You got 15 hours of pretrial time, up to 15 hours of pretrial time, but you have 75 hours that's covered underneath that monthly plan to cover you if you do have to go to court, if you're being sued.
Ladies, let me ask you this before we wrap you guys up. What is a good amount that you guys would recommend they allocate towards a specific CPA? What is too much and too high starting off? And I know this can vary city by city, but if you had to just guesstimate real quick, what would you say roughly is a good amount that they should allocate?
It depends on what you're having the CPA do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for one of my businesses, I have a bookkeeper, and then we take our stuff to the CPA at the end of the year for our audit. For another business, I do my own books and I take it to my CPA at the end of the year. And so it depends on what all you're having that CPA firm or CPA do. If it's an accountant, if it's a bookkeeper, and I can't disclose her rates, so I'm going to give you a range. And so,
that's fine.
And I've been with her for a very long time, but that range is from $1,500 to $2,500 for what I need done. Bookkeeping services, anywhere from $250 to $500 a month is what I have paid people who've worked with us. But that too varies, and I'm in Atlanta.
And to piggyback off of what Renee said, it's what they're going to be doing. If they do your payroll, it's going to be a little bit more because they're also going to do your year-end financials in the event you need to be audited. But it could be from maybe $300 to $500 a month. If I was a brand new business, I would want my CPA to be doing my monthly account reconciliations. Remember, I know how to make a hamburger. I know how to make some chicken. I don't know how to do any books. So, and then, just basically go from there. I would say between $300 to $500. So you're looking at between $3,600 and $6,000 a year. But you would rather have that number truly more so on the high end, because let's say, they're going to do those taxes. I'd even have them do some of my filings for me because they could have their admin in their office do that. But at first, as a brand new business, I'd have them do everything when it comes to the finances.
Okay. And that's what we like to see in a business plan too, from the legal side of it. We always look at a criminal attorney. Most criminal attorneys have a $2,500 retainer for 10 hours. Mm-hmm. So that's a good starting point. If we see that in the business plan, we know that they plan properly. And as far as on the bookkeeping side, everything that Renee and Michelle had mentioned is good. If we see that they have anywhere from $3,600 or more for the year, this is annual projected. We know that they understand what is needed, but both of those things are needed. And the legal shields, they are good to start, because in that business plan, you can say just what Carl just said. You have access to, how many hours you have, how many, and so that just, you can explain that out in probably about 3 to 4 sentences. And that's good to see in a business, in a business plan. So those are 2 things. And marketing. Those are 2 things when you are looking at either rebranding yourself. Those are some things that we look at. And I'll say this also, and I'm talking really the SBA side. We do like to see that you have at least 6 months. If you're going to ask for a loan, you're starting your business, like you said, okay, well, I'm going from a culinary business to brick and mortar. We want to make sure that you're asking for at least 6 months of working capital. And that working capital is your overhead. Okay, that's going to include your marketing, whoever you're going to use for PR, because you do need someone marketing. If you say, well, I'll do it myself, no, that's not enough. Your marketing, you have a CPA, and we always say to keep your costs down, marketing or building on a shoestring budget is look at making sure you have QuickBooks, and that can help take down some of the costs for your CPA. Because then all you have to do is give them access when they have QuickBooks online, and they can pull your documentation quarterly or semi-annually, which I will recommend quarterly on that. But those are some things that we look at when we're looking at if a restaurateur is looking at going into brick and mortar. Okay, those are some things that we want to see in your projections in your business plan.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, one question: if let's say you have a restaurant or business, I mean, they're doing extremely well and they're not doing that much marketing, will that still hinder how much money they can get from a loan? Will that still hinder them from getting a loan? Let's say their books is tight. Let's say they're doing good, but on their budget, you don't see them really paying a PR person. Will that still affect if they get a loan?
No. It could cost a point or two. And the reason being, as I had mentioned earlier, one thing that we're looking at now is sustainability of our restaurants and our small business. Because with the sustainability is what we're looking at. So if you're not marketing, that means you're not keeping up with the trends or the changes. Because particularly in the restaurant, particularly here in Houston, oh my God, it changes so much. So we like to see that you're doing that, and what you're projecting, what conferences you're going to go to over the next year. That can count towards your marketing. So yes, you want to put that in there in your projections. Okay. We want to know that you're going to attend whatever the large conference is or something. We want to see that.
And I'm gonna ask you one question, but to comment off that, I don't even think, because my business does advertisement for Black restaurants nationally, and just helping them understand how much I think the average is 10% of your annual budget should be dedicated towards marketing. 2 to 5% is digital marketing. To even help them understand that is a job in itself, because some of these restaurants don't understand why they should market. And like now, as we talk about branding and the money, I will be certain that a lot of these people will look up some of these restaurants. They will look up who they are. And if they're looking at somebody like Slutty Vegan and Turkey Leg, they know they brand speaks for itself. So we know they're a reputable brand, so why not give it to them? So anybody who's listening, the marketing component is so important. I cannot stress that as enough for doing advertisement and marketing for restaurants. Invest your money into your markets and into your branding, because if you don't, that will hinder you from getting more money. Because if people can't find you, they don't know who you are, then they're not going to want to give you anything.
Can I share with you real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
Some of these companies that got these big loans, like your Ruth Chris and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you realize because a lot of restaurants have shut down, the question we want to know is, what are you going to do to bounce back? They have money set aside for marketing and branding. So if the big boys do it, I don't care how small we are, we need to do it too.
That contingency plan.
Yep, that go back to the drawing board.
And that reserve, you have to have a reserve, because again, you have a rainy day.
Mm-hmm. One last question for everybody, and then we're gonna wrap it up. So if you can answer this quick for me, that'd be great. Is it a good idea to have a CPA firm charge me a $1,500 retainer? Somebody asked that.
A retainer for a CPA firm?
No,
yes.
That's too much.
That's too much?
I don't pay a retainer.
Yeah.
We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Our CPA that does our audit is in Missouri. They charge us $750 to do that one form. They charge us $3,000 to do our audit. We do an annual audit every year. And when I tell you my books are tight, my books are tight.
That's good.
So
$1,500 is a lot. So whoever asked that question, don't pay that
for a CPA, not for an attorney.
Not for an attorney.
But for a CPA,
Well, let me ask this question. Is it a startup business? If it's an established business that has lots of moving parts, that might not be an absorbent fee. If it's got a lot of moving parts, it depends on
that. There are a lot of things with that, and legal, I can see a retainer, but a CPA, you might have that annual contract based on their statement of work of what they're going to commit to, but it's never going to be a so-called retainer fee. It might be how you make that payment plan, whether I'm going to pay all of it to you up front, or we're going to do it monthly. But $1,500, no, there's a problem there.
All right, everybody. So the collective answer is no. If you have, and if you are not aware of a CPA, no, the collective answer is not no. It may depend on that structure of that organization.
And what you're asking.
So I'm sorry, guys. Depending on the structure, it's going to be dependent on your structure.
But we collectively think that's too much money. Yes, but depending on the structure.
Okay, we actually got some more insight. It is a bakery. We got some more insight. It is a bakery that's been established for 19 years.
Oh, they're probably going back and having to pull records and stuff. Having you pull records and do all tax returns. Those are what we call weighted questions. It's a great question, but again, like Renee said, it depends on what they're doing for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you recommend, should somebody who's entry level that probably is not savvy enough to know when they could be manipulated from a CPA, because it can't happen, should they ask for their licensing, like their recent, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, don't you have to take that exam every so often?
They should go to the chamber and they should network, and they should go with someone who's from that chamber. They don't need to just go for somebody off the street.
No, you want to get somebody that's reputable, hopefully within that inner circle. You have other restaurant contacts. I might say, Renee, who's your CPA? I need a CPA. I don't like Carl doing my books. So, you want to work within that inner circle. You just don't want to pick anyone. And if somebody tells you about that CPA, it's my hope that I can back the ethics of that person I'm going to recommend to you and everything. And you take the CPA once.
Yeah, I agree.
You sit for the CPA, you hope you pray and pass it that one time, just like how you sit for the bar and you hope you pray, you pass it that one time. However, a CPA is going to take so many continuing education courses each year in order to maintain that license. Now, if you don't take those continuing credits, your license can become invalid.
That's right.
But that's triggered by states.
And it's actually a story. I worked with a restaurant. She allowed somebody to do her taxes. A year later, her restaurant got shut down. And she told me everything that happened and how much money she had to pay. He was not paying the state tax.
Yeah.
He was paying the federal, but he wasn't paying the state. And I believe for like 2 years, and they sent her a letter. Now, mind you, when they do these things, they're not.
But that doesn't. But not paying your state taxes doesn't get you shut down.
It was more to it. That's the only thing I remember.
Yeah.
Okay. State tax.
Okay.
I don't have the financial language. There was a lot of things that he wasn't paying, and she had to pay like $20,000, and she had to shut everything down.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I was like, man. So make sure you guys, like everybody said, go to the Chamber of Commerce. Do not, well, you can, but just don't Google somebody and say, okay, I'm going with this person. Their website look nice.
No.
They look nice.
You have to vet them.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Whoever's on this call, they have access. So if you're on this call, you have access. So you get with that access. Talk to the people who are within this group and find out who's using whom, and go that route.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. All right, now before we close, if everybody, Renee, Bridget, Carl, Miss Michelle, if all you guys want to just give just one thing you think any restaurant business, any business should be doing that you personally feel like the most important to you, just one quick 30, 45-second outro for everybody.
I'd love to start. I've been thinking about if I were listening on this call, how depressed I might be that there's some stuff I don't know how to do. Don't be depressed. If you have a business idea, if you cook really well and that's what you do and it's your passion, don't let it stop being your passion. Just partner with people who can help you execute your vision. Don't give up. Don't give up. And if you're raggedy now, then stop being raggedy. That's all. That's all. One step.
And I would say proper preparation prevents very poor performance when it comes to your funding. And like I totally agree with Renee. Don't give up. We're sharing these things with you mainly because out of frustration, because we're at this point and we know you need the money.
Yes.
And you can't get it. So we're just as much as frustrated. And all we're saying is stop, be still, put it in place, and move forward. Because if God grants you the ability to live another day, another year, guess what? This is not the last disaster that we'll have. So let's just move forward from here and get ready so we can be prepared for the next one. Documentation. If nothing else, ask 3 people. Make sure you interview 3 people because they're key to your success. And you're gonna tell you who's right for your vision.
Go ahead, Carl, then we end with Michelle.
Oh, okay. I agree with all the ladies, and I'm just privileged to be on the same panel as these ladies that have put out so much great information. The one thing that I just want to leave is that make sure you look out for yourself. Make sure you understand what your plan is, and not short term. Once again, what I mentioned earlier, long term. make sure, like you say, your paper's in place, documentation is in place, and I'm just gonna harp on this, protect yourself,
Mhm.
protect your business. That's all I need to say.
Mm-hmm. All right, Michelle.
Okay, I want to leave you guys with 4 points. One, you need to be willing to do your homework. And at the same time, when you do your homework, you're constantly learning. Life is learning. Number 2, be transparent. We talked about making sure those documents are right. If you want to hide something, no need to try to apply for something. Make sure you are transparent. Everything's in place. From this pandemic, like I mentioned before, the contingency plans, got to have an open mind. You got to be open to change. You just can't say, well, we can't do it a traditional way. There's no longer the normal. It's a new normal that we're going into. It's a new normal. I don't want to hear another person tell me, well, I can't wait till I get back to normal. I tell my kids that it's never going to be back to normal. Everything is new. How do we move forward like everyone else that has spoken before me? And the last thing, pray.
Ooh.
Hey, nothing wrong with prayer. I don't care what nobody say. Nothing wrong with prayer answers. Pray without ceasing too. Don't let me get. All right, guys. Look, this call might turn to something else. Let me stop. All right, everybody. You guys will who's tuned in, please take the poll as well. Because we know that it's going to be some information like, did you receive the SBA, things like that. I personally want to so make sure everybody you take the poll, please. It's going to be useful. I personally want to thank all of you guys, Renee, Bridget, Carl, Michelle. All of you guys have been amazing. It's been wonderful talking to you. I've been learning. I actually got a whole page of notes because I
got 2
love
pages.
being around people who. Yeah, I love being around people who just great insight, great wisdom, great market industry, and I thank you guys for coming out. I want to thank everybody again for tuning in. Thank our community partners, the National African American Restaurant Nightclub Association, Fade Media, Google Digital Coaches, myself, Black People Eats. Now, if you guys have time, they're going to be doing one of these every day this week. Today was just the first one. Tomorrow discussion, they're going to be talking about the new way of business. Panelists will update business operations, and they'll be discussing new opportunities in supply chains, which is important because of how a lot of meat and stuff is being now with operations. Transportation is changing. So make sure you guys do that. And to stay up to date, make sure you follow Black Restaurant Week on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of that for future announcements. And I just want to say thank you guys again for letting me moderate. It was a wonderful pleasure being with you guys. You guys gave a lot of great insight. There's one thing I will tell everybody again, documentation, when the cover comes up, are you protected? Is it tight and is it right? Because if it's loose, it ain't. They're gonna overlook you. So we cannot get upset that these major companies are getting loans because we are not doing what we're supposed to do. Don't blame nobody but yourself. Yes, sir.
Hey, before we go, can everybody leave their information for everyone that's on the webinar? They need to get
Yes, please. And we were at the recording too. To Black Restaurant Week website if everybody want to go back real quick, everybody, and then we're gonna log off. Can everybody give where they can find you if they want more information specifically for what you do? Carl, you can start first since you brought it up, and then everybody else can follow suit.
Okay. Once again, I'm Carl Calendar, and the way you can reach me, there's 2 ways. You can definitely reach me. Hopefully I don't get spammed on this. I'll give y'all my direct phone number, which is 404-396-1659. And you can reach me through my website, which is missionsmallbiz.com. Thank you.
And I'm Renee Sattywhite. You can reach me at Renee, R-E-N-E-E, at sattywhite.com. My last name, R-E-N-E-E, at SATTIEWHITE.com, or at Renee at AACUC.org. Renee at AACUC.org. And the phone number is 770-761-2769. 770-761-2769.
Mhm.
I'm
Michelle, you can go ahead.
Okay. I'm Michelle Taylor. My cell number is 678-665-4983. My email, I'll give you my personal email, not my work email, aka pearl85@hotmail.com.
Of
AKA,
course.
okay.
Hotmail. Woo! Heard that in a long time.
Yes.
All right. And then we're going to conclude with Bridget.
Yes, my name is Bridget Ross, and I'm here representing Lyft Fund, and the website is www.liftfund.com, liftfund.com. My direct email address is bross@liftfund.com. The best way to contact me is via email right now, but I will give you my direct number. It's 1-888-215-2373, extension 1556. But the best way to reach me right now until we have finished with all these rounds of funding, more funding to come, is bross@liftfund.com. And thank you for the opportunity.
Yes,
You're
thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you
My
for your
pleasure.
service.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
wonderful talking to
Jeremy
all
did
of you
good.
guys. Thank you. I
Yes,
appreciate it. I was a
thank
little
you, Jeremy.
nervous. I was a little nervous, and we'll be honest with you. I was like, oh, my background's in finance, so maybe it probably helped it a little bit. But yeah, I think you guys gave so much great information. I can't thank you enough, especially you guys being in the industry for such an amazing time. This is just the kickoff. I can't imagine what's going to happen the rest of the week. This is just the beginning. So now everybody who's going to reach out, let me give you a piece of advice before we go. It's something I've been doing for like 8 years because I'm only 28, so I've been doing it since I was 20. Make sure when you reach out to them, be very specific and direct. These people are busy. They have lives. They just don't have 2 hours. Just sit and just chat. Be very specific when you reach out to them, and don't try to leech off of them without at least trying to give back. Their time is precious. They could be doing other things. So be specific. If you say, hey, you mentioned about documentation in order. I noticed I have a poor budget bookkeeping system. What are 3 you recommend? Be specific and direct. Don't call them trying to get free answers. It's good, but there's going to be, to an extent, you have to pay people. So make sure you direct with your questions so they can help you to the best of their abilities. And don't just try to use them all the time. So don't keep calling them every day for the next 5 months. Don't call them every day. Don't do that. Because some people don't know how to, some people overextend their welcome. So when you reach out and you say, hey, you really talked about covering yourself legally. I'm a sole proprietor. How can I transition? Or can you send me information? Don't bother them too much, because people do have lives and they do have businesses. So keep that in mind. So thank you guys again. Okay. You are, yeah, I know, because I used to be that person when I was young. Just keep emailing people. And it's kind of like, yeah, I learned though you can't do that. You got to be very specific. Mm-hmm. You know, you say, hey, you mentioned the Black Chamber of Commerce. I'm in Dallas. Do you know anybody in Dallas that I can connect to that can further help me? That's how you can kind of use this as a resource, you know, right. And tell them thank you. Don't just always ask for something. Give them something. It's better to give than to receive. Remember that too. But thank you guys. I appreciate it. And everybody, make sure you take the poll. And I love you guys. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Bye-bye.